Hey Kate, thanks so much for joining us on Business Your Way today. I'm so excited for our kōrero.
Thanks so much. It's awesome to be here.
Nice. I always like to ask my guests to introduce themselves because, I think I'd just butcher it if I even tried, even though you've given me your profile. And that sounds a bit robotic if I just was to read it. So let's kickstart by telling the listeners, introducing yourself to the listeners, um, who you are, who you serve, and how you make your moolah.
Yeah, sure thing. And I'm literally going to read this from my website because I, for some reason, freeze when I get to the elevator pitch. And then I'll just elaborate from there because I totally, of course, know what I do. But in an essence, my business is called Out of Office or NZ Out of Office. And I help established business owners to get their life back. That's where the name Out of Office comes from. By just sort of learning to help people calmly organize and get their online systems working for them so that they don't go down rabbit holes trying to do that and they can just get a little bit of their lives back while their business runs for them. And I specialize in Kajabi, which is an online learning management system with all the wraparound services all in one platform. But I also do some consultation with people that aren't on Kajabi as well, just helping them get everything set up in the back end of their websites and their online learning systems and just sort of the online business, I guess, and helping people to launch and things like that. Yeah. So a lot of the tech and technical side of things and also a bit of strategy as well.
Perfect.
Full
So
stop.
now,
Big line.
yeah. But now my big question is, what's the backstory that got you here? And how long
Yeah.
have you, well, maybe let's start with the question. How long have you been doing this business, New Zealand out of office? Let's start there.
Yeah, NZ Out of Office has been around for since I think I registered it in 2017. Back then, it was just an idea. It actually, the name actually came first before the business. Was sparked by my flatmate and I driving to our dreary jobs in the CBD of Wellington, our office jobs, just always dreaming and talking about what else we could be doing with our lives. And we came up with an idea that would be like a cafe where people could come and work together. Bearing in mind, this was the days before the pandemic. It was before the big earthquake in Christchurch as well.
Mm.
Sorry, in Wellington as well. So, yeah, and the name Out of Office kind of sprung up. And that was the original. And then we decided, no, we're not going to do that because you have to get up early if you want to make coffee for people. So, um, so from there, yeah, Out of Office has had many iterations of working in network marketing to start off with, then helping people with social media, organic marketing, and into now what is started as a virtual assistant type business, and now a little bit more consulting and coaching of online systems and Kajabi. So yeah, so it's always stayed Out of Office, even though it's had different services along the way. The mission has always been the same for me to have the flexibility to work out of an office, anywhere
Yeah.
from anywhere, and also for my clients to get their lives back and be able to do the same.
Yeah. And I like that though, because that's how our businesses evolve. If I think about my business, we've always been Oaha, but when we started 23 years ago, we weren't an event management agency. We
Yeah,
were providing like operational support services. It just evolves and
it
business just
does.
evolves as you go. And if you're paying attention to the people you want to work with, then your business starts to make those shifts that
Yeah.
aligns to them and aligns to how you want to live your life too. So
That's right. Yeah, just
yeah,
figuring it out along the way. And who knows where we'll all be in 5 or 10 years' time, even with the businesses. But yeah, and I guess there's a lot that's happened in that time as well. So, and that's
yeah.
definitely been an integral part of my business right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Pandemic and all. So
Yeah.
let's go back to
Yep.
before you started your business. Like, what were you doing? What were you known for? What did life look like pre going into business with the concept of, getting out of the office?
Yeah, so I've always worked in corporate world. A lot of it has been in travel and event conference industry. I never had the inkling to have my own business, although
Mm.
looking back on it, I grew up amongst my father had a business, my mother dabbled in her own businesses, throughout the time. So I guess I've always known traditional independent business. My dad had a Foursquare, so very traditional bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
Um, And yeah, and I worked in conference events, worked all the hours for very little pay, and essentially burnt out after quite a few years of working in those capacities. So I was living in Wellington at the time when I finished working in events, and decided I'm going to go into project work, government project work, because that was the thing to do. Great money, you could work as a contractor to have a little bit of flexibility and yeah, earn some good money. So that's what I did, and I started working around various projects in government, and gradually that sucked the soul out of me. I found myself just really purposeless, like starting to think about what else happens outside of, this, or where is this going? These, a lot of the time the projects are very long-winded and drawn out and boring, really, and require a lot of other people's, say and everything. And a lot of the time too, I found that I was being used as a bit more of just a spare part in the projects. So didn't have couldn't use my initiative or anything. So yeah, so I started to think about what I wanted to do. I love to travel. I really missed the travel from working in the travel and event industry. And so I started doing some personal development actually, and met a life coach. And from there, figured out what I wanted to do, but didn't believe at that stage that I could do it. She was my first cheerleader, and I remember she asked me to make a vision board of where I wanted things to be, sort of in 5 years, or what I wanted the next 5 years to look like. And she rejected my first vision board because it wasn't. She said, "This is your life now. Like you already travel, and this is things I was already doing." So I put a rocket to the moon on that next version, and she accepted it. Yeah, and she was my first cheerleader really, and sort of explored the way that I could travel. So I really dislike winter, so I really wanted to be traveling away for New Zealand winter every year. Yeah, and we just started dabbling in that. I still worked in project world and government, but just did 6 months at a time, and then headed overseas to different places. I started pet and house sitting as well to have that flexibility and be able to move around, and then just base myself back in Wellington during the project time, during the New Zealand summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess from there, I just kept exploring how I could travel more, work from anywhere, have that ultimate, freedom to be able to do that and earn okay money to be able to do it as well. Yeah, and that's kind of where that 2017, that's where that I headed away for winter, finished the contract and headed away for winter, and with no real plan. I had an initial plan. I went on a cruise ship with a friend in Alaska, and then I headed to Belize because that's somewhere I hadn't been before, and then I just had no plan from there. When I was in Belize, I got contacted by a New Zealand family who lived in Guatemala, and they had seen that I was a pet sitter online, and they contacted me and said, "We live in Guatemala, we're heading away to Europe for the kids' school holidays. Will you come and look after our house and our cats?" And I was in Belize, which is next door to Guatemala, so I got there on a bus in 5 days' time and found myself sitting in Guatemala pet sitting, and starting to help people online with social media and things by that stage too. And took a while, and one day it just hit me that I was living that lifestyle that I'd wanted to live, and still it didn't look like how I had envisaged it, so it took a while for it to hit me. And then I had a big cry. And, that it had happened, and started to, added a little bit more belief to my pockets. And as they say, the rest is history, but it has been a roaming thing since then. It's swapped and changed. Obviously, COVID affected the getting away for winter. I had spent a couple of winters in New Zealand. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a moving feast.
Yeah, so much in that I really want to unpack. So
Yeah.
maybe the first one I want to go back to is, like, here in New Zealand, having a life coach isn't something that I would say is usual, or that is talked about, or, when you get a little bit stuck in your life, that's not the first thing that us Kiwis, we're
No.
going to go, "Oh, I think I need a life coach." How did you get to that point?
Yeah, definitely not. And I would say I was a fairly typical Kiwi at that stage, hence my belief wasn't high, I would say, in what I could do. Even though I've traveled the world for, more than 20 years, and because I feel like when you get outside of New Zealand, you see a lot more of the world, you can understand a lot more of what's going on in the world, but I still was like, I'm back in New Zealand though. So how it started was, my first iteration of my business, as I mentioned, was network marketing. And within network marketing, you get a lot of personal development coaching. That's just part of the package of network marketing. I had never done any personal development before at all. And I went on a sort of a weekend retreat. So at the gym that I went to at the time, the coach at the gym, he does like leadership development training now. He just started doing some like weekend retreats with people, and they were called Life by Design. And I went to one of them and discovered how low my belief was, and just the subconscious decisions that you make because you don't believe in yourself. So for instance, he had the glass walk. So he had broken wine bottles on the floor and you walk across the glass assisted and your feet brushed off at the end and actually quite in a safe environment. And I instantly told myself, no, I'm not going to do that. It was optional, of course. In a group of 20 or 30 people, I said, no, I don't need to prove myself to anyone. I'm not going to do that. And he coached me through that and why I was making that decision. And it was, obviously all stemmed back to actually my belief in doing it, rather than being proud and telling people I didn't need to prove myself. I mean, there was a lot behind it. And yeah, I walked across the glass successfully in the end. And it stemmed from there. So one of the ladies that was at that retreat was a life coach, and started to offer that for women. And I remember my first session with her, just one-to-one. She lived in Wellington as well. And I left the session. I told her the next week, I left the session feeling bad that I hadn't opened up completely or cried yet.
Yeah.
You're so hard on yourself all the time as well.
Yeah.
And that just stemmed from there. I just sort of, I guess you start to see many things that you can start to do. And obviously once I ended up in Guatemala, I was like, this is happening somehow. And even to this day, I still, I have a business coach and I still tell her, oh, the universe has done that. And she's like, no, the universe hasn't done that. You've done that. The universe might have listened, but So you sort of remember the small steps along the way and celebrate them because it is, all part of it.
Yeah, which kind of leads nicely into that next thought I had, is that you had the vision board and then you just took the first step, not knowing what the next step would be, or the next step. Like, you didn't have a grand plan. You just took the next best step to put into action that vision board. So, that moment that you were sitting, in Guatemala, pet sitting, and you had that, like, oh my gosh, I am living the plan that I'd put in place. Like, how did that make you feel? Well, how did that then change who you were, like, being?
I think it just allowed me to plan a bit forward a bit, actually, because I knew what was possible and what I'd done. I still wasn't completely there yet, because the ultimate was to, obviously by that stage I knew I wanted to be earning my own income, not going back to government, to the projects. So that probably just started to escalate that part of it, really. Like, right, now I need to figure out how to keep this going. And how it's escalated my social media training at the time, like helping other people with social media. I was like, wow, I've got all this time now and I'm pet sitting. I knew what I was doing for the next 3 months there, so I could start to put some plans in place even for that 3 months. But I will say, like, people listening to this might be like, oh yeah, but I can't go traveling, I can't do that. And the traveling part is actually what comes easy to me. So it sounds crazy going on a one-way flight up to, Central America, not knowing what you're doing, but that part was easy for me because that's what I've done all my life. I've always done long trips like that as well. It was just being able to financially back myself, and keep that going, and without having to fall back into a full-time 9 to 5, with the restrictions of holidays and things. It just every step along the way has just given me a little bit pinch more of belief, and it's still to this day, it's still a work in progress.
Yeah. And you know what? I think we're all in a work in progress. Like, it's just one big journey. It's how much we believe in the journey that we're on. And just take the next best step in the direction that we want to head, right?
Absolutely. And it was still, looking back now, still dreaming small back then, still just, I just need to figure out how I can get my own business and earn my own money. And, fast forward, I always forget, what year are we in? 2014, 2024, almost 3 years full time in this business now. And my stomach's doing flips right now because I'm about to buy a house as well. So, you
Wow.
know, you couldn't have told me that in 2017 that that was possible. Even if I
Yeah.
was working full time, I never thought
Yeah.
that was a possibility for me on my own to be able to do that. So yeah, especially in New Zealand.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. True. I mean, so true.
Yeah.
My journey into like the online business, because I've held the traditional office business,
Hmm.
I don't know, done for you type consultancy, operational support, and still you could say an event agency is that operational support
Hmm.
when they want to put a project in place that just happens to be a conference or something, you know. So spending all of my first 15 years in business doing that, and then going, oh, I'm bored. What's next? And then discovering the online world, and this like whole magic box just then
Possibilities.
opens up.
Hmm.
And yeah, to be honest, the
Yeah.
person I am today is nothing like the person I was like 8 years ago. So
Yeah,
it's
same.
crazy journey.
And that's obviously, you know, awesome and amazing for us, but obviously comes with its challenges as well, you know, with
Yeah.
you know, loved ones and other people along the way and past colleagues and things like that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the business that you have today. How
Hmm.
did you transition from doing network marketing, social media into now online learning management systems and Kajabi in particular? How did
Yeah.
that transition happen?
Yeah, so around I came back from winter end of 2019 before we knew what was about to happen to the world. And I decided to move back down to Christchurch. That's where my family are. And my sister had started to have babies, so I was get closer to them. And moved down here and got a part. My social media business was going okay, but it definitely wasn't full time. Couldn't pay the rent or anything yet. So I got a part-time role with some friends down here in a very busy catering business. Love to throw myself into those hands-on type businesses when I was working. And kind of I started to create a social media course actually because my time was a little bit more limited because I was working again and the yeah, so I started to create a course for people because I thought that's the way I can still serve people with social media. And then the pandemic hit around that time, and around that Christmas, we could start to see it spreading around the world. And I discovered Kajabi about the same time because that's where I was going to put my course. I'd done an online business course myself and learned about Kajabi. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I started to do that. I didn't get it onto Kajabi, my social media course. I instead just started helping people with anything administrative that they needed in their business. And I just had a bit of technical knowledge from doing the social media and just trying to explore what I could do online, I guess, you know, so that the technical stuff comes really easy for me. And the creative side of things, as well, I've almost gone full circle in my life because when I left high school, I actually studied interior design and never worked in the industry. But now I'm like, you know, using some of those old skills in interior
Yeah.
design. Yeah, so at the start of the first pandemic, I was helping clients virtually with online things. I wasn't working in the traditional catering business because that had closed down for the pandemic. And so, yeah, helping people there. And one of my clients needed to put her services and her courses online because she traditionally worked one-to-one with clients. She's like a tapping trauma coach.
Right.
And traditionally works in person with people or on Zoom. So we had to move everything online. I had seen Kajabi, so I helped her with that. And then just the rest is history. I love
Yeah.
working in Kajabi. Yeah, and then obviously gradually over that time, more and more people needed help to do that kind of thing as well. So yeah, I don't know how long it took to niche, a while.
Yeah.
But I do remember that when I said, that's it, this is what I do now.
Yeah.
And that was just a decision really for me because that's what everyone already knew that I did. But yeah, so I started out more as a virtual assistant doing Kajabi work. And over
Mm.
time, obviously, I've just, I know Kajabi in my sleep now. I work really closely with the team at Kajabi up in the States. And I've become um, yeah, like a Kajabi partner and expert as well. And so then I've just moved a little bit more into, I have done for you services, but I also have the consulting services where I help people to set it up and run themselves as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Nice.
great. I love
You
it.
know, being known for one thing and now being known for
Mm.
something completely different, how did you feel that transition, or that wasn't something that you thought about? It was just a natural evolution.
I think it's a natural evolution. I think looking back on it now, sometimes things still come up where you're like, oh yeah, that's not me anymore. Like when you're in LinkedIn, a lot of my LinkedIn contacts are from when I worked in corporate world. So
Right.
now they see me showing myself off all over LinkedIn, promoting my services and things and workshops and stuff, which is definitely not, who I was 5, 6, 7 years
Mm,
ago. Yeah, and then there's the personal side of it as well. I remember when I first kind of started out with the online business, promoting myself and then getting feedback, let's say, from friends and family, like, oh, you're always posting on social media, why do you post twice in both accounts? Like just hearing little things like that, which, really
mm,
doesn't help with imposter syndrome and self-sabotage that, those friends that come along on the business journey with us.
yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of that, I'm through now. You have to make your own
Yeah.
success, I think. Yeah, no, that's one thing I always remember too. Nobody's coming to save you. And
Yeah.
just make sure that you have the right support and the right encouragement and people around you as well to sort of balance that out. So yeah. And I mean, still to this day, like my parents, I don't think still really understand what it is I do online. I think
Yeah.
they're only just now understanding the success that I've had online because I'm able to buy a house.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, to them it's not that understandable, obviously, because they've had bricks and mortar businesses. They understand that kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole, putting yourself out there, because there
Mm.
is so much fear associated
Mhm.
with like who you are now compared to like who your followers on LinkedIn know you for. So government project work, and
Yeah.
now you're doing Kajabi website learning management systems, like that fear of being seen and criticized and judged holds so many entrepreneurs back
Mm.
from realizing the potential. Any, what were the challenges that you overcome in order to kind of go, all right, I'm just going to do this because this is now who I am compared to now what they think of me?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a lot of that, especially I guess in that LinkedIn space, which actually I've probably only really come into the LinkedIn space a lot more in the last year or two. Previously it was just the Facebook and Instagram and yeah, that's it really. But yeah, I think just reminding, I still to this day am personal development crazy because that will keep your chin above the water, but also um, just remembering you get to make the decisions in your life and imagine not posting that post or running that workshop because you're worried about what John Smith thinks that you worked 10 years ago. Well, he doesn't get to rule, what's going on in your life now, and God knows what he's doing now anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just think I think I hope now it's becoming easier for people because the opportunities are a lot more out there and uh becoming normalized.
Mm.
But yeah, I still get that that it is a fearful thing. And even for me, sometimes, I still won't go on video, have to ramp myself up to get on video and things. Yeah, for some reason, especially on social media, I'll jump on a Zoom with anybody, but but yeah,
Yeah.
and a workshop or whatever. But yeah, especially the social media ones for some reason. Yeah, a lot of the time it's a content block thing as well. Just
Yeah.
the overwhelm of what to talk about and who's
Yeah.
listening and yeah, I think thinking about who's watching as well. That was a big one I remember from the start.
Yeah.
Not pressing send on an email because who's in the list. Used to go through the list and check, make sure that the
Yeah.
right people weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of the time, close family and friends, because they see the change in you, can be the harshest critics. So,
Mm.
and that is what we fear. But I think something else I've learned along the way is things that you fear have probably happened anyway. So
Mm.
just sort of getting over the speed bump and continuing on, and just keep aiming towards the North Star, the goal that you're aiming towards.
Yeah. Back to that vision
Backing up.
board. Back
Yeah,
to
back to the
where
vision
am I
board.
going? What do I
Yeah,
want in my life?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just aiming for it,
Lovely.
and that's what you have control over. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, what are the other like major challenges that you would say that you've had along your journey that would be valuable to share with others that are still navigating their journey?
Yeah. I would say what I call shiny object syndrome. So
Mhm.
definitely at the start of the business, I was looking for magic wands and things to happen overnight, and following a lot of gurus, and and I don't think that's gone away. Even almost what are we, 8 years into my business. For me, I've learned to temper it down and not get distracted by it. But I think online that space is wide, louder than ever. People trying to catch your attention because they know the quick steps and the quickest way to do something, or the best platform, or whatever it is. So for me, what helps me to stop trying all the free trials and attending all the free workshops and everything was having a business coach that kept me accountable, definitely, and yeah, niching eventually. Like now that I've sort of niched into that Kajabi online learning management space,
Yeah.
that's helped me immensely, because now I only need to focus on those kind of trainings and those kind of things, rather than all the platforms and needing to know all the knowledge about everything as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that leads into as well, when you first start a business, you wear all the hats and you're doing all the things. So
Yeah.
you are your bookkeeper, and you are your marketer, and you're your everything, tech person. And that's inevitable, I think, for any first time small business owner, definitely.
Yeah.
So when knowing when the time's right to start to pass things over to experts, yeah, without chasing, finding another platform to put it on, because that might be quicker. Yeah, just finding the expert. Like, you're the expert in your field, so you find the expert in that field and get it done for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. Love that.
Mm.
So, what does your team look like currently?
Yeah, quite small, mostly just me. Yeah, I have a subcontractor who helps me out with some of my Kajabi work and my clients' Kajabi work as well. She's
Yeah.
based in Australia. And then I have a virtual assistant that helps me in my business, doing things like the contracts, like the new client contracts, end of month invoicing, some analytics stats for me and things like that.
Mhm.
She is based in the Philippines, Vera, and then I actually also have a bookkeeper. Yeah,
Nice.
which was the first thing I delegated.
Yes.
Yeah, early on in business, it wasn't so bad because I was doing contract work in government, and it was fairly simple to do your own bookkeeping then, because there wasn't all the
Yeah.
expenses and and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. I remember doing my first year of end of year tax return myself.
Yeah.
I think that was the end of 2017, 18, and just vowed I'd never do that again, and handed it over to someone else. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
definitely the first thing I delegated.
Yeah. Nice.
No
Nice.
regrets
And
at
so,
all.
being based here in Aotearoa, where when I look at what is going on around me, what's going on in the network, you
Hmm.
can slowly see the world of online business having, coming into our country really. Like I would say, even just pre-COVID, anything online business was, we would just look at you strangely and go,
Yeah.
what? And you always had to go offshore, and you were always looking at what was going on offshore. So your client base, are you mainly working with clients here in Aotearoa, or is your client base mainly overseas?
Um, right now, I would say it's about 70-30, so 70% New Zealand, 30% global. Yeah, I would say, and it started out very much all New Zealanders. Yeah, like during the pandemic, that's because I was already helping a lot of Kiwis with virtual assistant type work. I was a member of the Virtual Assistant Network of New Zealand, which was so pivotal during the first pandemic, for anyone that had any kind of business that needed to get online. There's a whole swag of virtual assistants that help New Zealand. And I remember we all celebrated on a Zoom call drinks, that people finally understood what a virtual assistant was, and we didn't have to understand it anymore. Explain it, sorry. And we celebrated that. But I think, yeah, New Zealand, I would say definitely slightly behind the rest of the world in terms of online business, and or just the flexibility of, like, even if you still work in corporate, working from home. And obviously the pandemic escalated that, and that became very normalized, and it's starting
Yeah.
to swing back the other way now. But in saying that, I think a lot of the people I work with in New Zealand, and I think this is very typical of New Zealanders, are laying low under the cover. So you just don't even know
Mm,
that there are people doing online business in New Zealand because perhaps all of their customers are offshore, so they're not even
mm,
shouting about themselves in New Zealand.
yeah,
And Kiwis aren't great at shouting about themselves anyway. So,
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot. And I still, to this day, when a New Zealander comes to me with Kajabi, I'm like, oh, you've got Kajabi too, because I feel like I know everyone in New Zealand that has Kajabi. So I'm always surprised when I find a new person. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I think, yeah, I've started working more globally in the last couple of years, just through networking and contacts that I've worked with. Sometimes it works better for me when I'm traveling, obviously, with time zones and things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, at the moment, I've got American clients and British clients and Kiwis.
Nice. British, that must be like hard if you want to talk to each other because we're
Yeah,
like the 12-hour difference. America
yeah,
is great because you're
yeah,
like 4 hours, but you're in a
yeah.
different
We
day.
have a good
That's
overlap,
totally
yeah, with
doable.
America.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
England and
those
Europe
in the
is a bit
UK,
tricky. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I tend to only have to speak on, one-to-one on a call with clients at the start of a project, if I'm doing done for you work for them, and the rest is all via email or project management. But yeah, I would say they will never be like my biggest client base because of that. Yeah, because someone either has to get up early or stay up late. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
luckily
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that like to stay up late. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Apart from Kajabi, what
Mhm.
are the other tools and systems that you would say are critical in your business?
Yeah, let's say Canva. I use a
Mm,
lot of Canva for designing and all my social media and marketing and workshops and things. Zero for reconciling all my payments, which I've only had in the last couple of years, so that's nice to have. What do I use a lot of? I've recently been using Asana as a project management
okay.
tool. Yeah. Yeah, I say recently because I'm considering moving to another one. But yeah,
Mm,
I've been toying with that for my project management because up until then, I think it's the same for anyone in business. And I'll just tell this story too. You start very manually in what you do, with unless you've got shiny object and you join all the tools. But I think financially it makes sense just to start where you need to. And that first social media course that I actually created the course, but I never put it onto Kajabi. When the pandemic hit, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to give people this course because people are going to need it. People are at home, they
mm,
want to learn, they're sitting there looking to consume content. So I gave it away for free, but I didn't have it on Kajabi. So I manually emailed out over 100 people a 5-day course, one day at a time. Through my Gmail. Looking back at that now, that's what I had to do because I didn't have any other tools to do that, and I had all the time, to do it.
yeah.
So, but yeah, and then gradually, if I had continued on with that course, I would have, of course, moved on to a learning management system. But same for, you know, project management or expenses. Even I think I started expenses in a spreadsheet, and just did my filing from there. Yeah, so starting small is fine, and it's just until once you start to scale your business and it gets bigger, then you need to consider what tools are going to help manage your time. So I'm all about automation, delegation,
Yeah.
lots of shins usually. Can't remember what my other ones are, but yeah, education and what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get things in place. So that I think those are the main ones I use daily. I obviously, I have a Kajabi account as well myself. So even though
Yeah.
I don't have an online course, I use Kajabi for my website, my email marketing, my what was I just thinking? My coaching. Yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
coaching portal on Kajabi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I use it as a test for a lot of my clients, a test
Yeah.
site.
Nice.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I did exactly the same thing as you when I started out, and I was like, all the tools, because I'm the kind of person who is like, I don't want to keep changing platforms every like
Mm.
few months and start here and then move to this one and then move to that one and move to that one. So don't, shiny object syndrome. What does this do? What does that do? What does that do? And
Yeah,
then took the plunge and did Kajabi and use Kajabi now for the email marketing, the
yeah,
coaching
cool.
portal, the podcast. So I put my
Yeah,
podcast on there as
perfect.
well.
Yeah,
So it's like using all of the tools. So it might be an investment, but actually it's the same investment and you can scale your business, and
Yeah.
that doesn't go up with it, unlike
Yeah.
other, like email marketing, because I think I started out with active campaign,
Yeah.
and every time you added more subscribers your price went up, and I'm
The
like,
price goes up.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I
Yeah, it's true. I speak with a lot of people that are just at the start of their business journey and want to come and want to create an online course straight away. And I don't recommend, Kajabi to everyone because it's a higher price point, entry level price
yeah,
point as well, especially for business owners that are just starting out. If you're not making much revenue in your business yet, then it doesn't
yeah,
make sense. And that's where I say you do kind of need to start manual. I think I use MailChimp
yeah,
to start. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, but then there's that fine line because even if you're just sort of starting out, but you do have a little bit of business going on, like you say, it's cool to jump on there and know that you can just scale it. You're never going to have to move off it and change and chop
yeah,
and change because you can without it costing you more. I mean, obviously
yeah,
you need to go up through the plans as you expand, but it's all there. You're never going to have to move it to somewhere else. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's just
I
that,
mean,
yeah,
that
that
doesn't
fine
stop
line.
me from rethinking that every year. Like every year, the
Yeah.
subscription comes around because I
Oh,
pay
when your subscription,
annually.
you pay annually, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
you
I'm
get a
like,
20%
okay,
discount for doing that.
yeah, totally. So I think I get the annual discount, and then I get Amy Porterfield's discount on top of
Oh,
that. So
right, nice.
it's like, yeah. So I'm like, well, that was a no-brainer. But every year, I still revisit it. Like, is this my best
Yeah.
option? Is
Yeah.
this my best option?
And
So
I think
yeah,
that's sensible because that's what we do in life as well. I was literally
yeah,
just talking to my brother-in-law about insurances. Boring. But about he said we just stuck with the same one because it's easier. So I was like, I guess just every few years, having a look at everything to sort the bills, especially while it's been, high cost of living for everybody and stuff. So it's sensible in business, absolutely, to reassess everything, but definitely not just considering the price and what price something else must be because you'll
yeah,
never compare apples to apples in those kind of platforms anyway.
yeah,
And then the cost of moving stuff too, like obviously your
yeah,
time cost, and
yeah,
stress cost, and the cost of learning a new platform.
yeah, 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 yeah. And that is so true because in my event agency, because I'm doing both,
Yeah,
um,
fun for you.
every I would say every about 6 years we change event management
Hmm.
platforms. And for one reason or another, because the platform that we were using now don't support whatever we need, or
Hmm.
the pricing just jumped and they don't
Hmm.
have everything we need, or whatever it is. But we've literally, I think, changed platforms about every 6 years. The learning curve on that for the whole team is the biggest expense, not the
Hmm.
actual cost of the platform itself.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the learning and becoming pro at a new platform when we were pro at the old platform. So there's this whole learning curve that comes with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And at the, um, expense of what it means for your customers as well when you
Mm.
when you're moving them over and any errors that
Yeah.
might get made because of that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a big leap,
Totally.
especially once you've got a really fully grown company like a big, yeah.
Yeah, totally right.
Mm.
So one more question that is really intriguing me, because now you have this opportunity to operate globally. How do you charge? Do you charge in New Zealand currency or in pounds or in US dollars? Like, what's that look like,
Yeah,
from a global business point of view? And I know lots of people ask that question.
yeah, I would say it's why I'm so thankful for my bookkeeper. Um, because yeah, it's a complex business behind the behind
Yeah.
everything. So with the capability of Kajabi, I'm able to, charge in any currency. So
Mm,
using the Kajabi checkouts, or in saying that, I don't just use that, invoice as well. So I quote in US dollars. So that's my
hmm
kind of static currency, purely because that is the most, I guess, stable and or most suited currency for me, especially when I'm traveling. So yeah, so I quote in US dollars. If I have a New Zealand client, then I will convert that to New Zealand dollars, and otherwise my global clients all pay in US dollars via I use Wise for transfers,
Yeah.
invoice transfers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's simple for them. They just have to
Yeah.
click a link and accept the payment, really, like link their own card up or bank account to make the transfer. Like gone are the days. Imagine doing this kind of business even 20 years ago, probably only 10 years ago, even. Like
Even 10 years ago. Yeah.
I remember when I started traveling and you used to have travelers checks and like
Yeah.
money across countries cost
Yeah.
so much money as well.
Yeah.
You know, of course we still have fees, and I pay a lot of fees in online
Yeah.
business transactions, like, and then transferring all the money into my New Zealand bank account when I need to and things
Yeah.
like that. But I just account that's just part of my business costs. Like that's
Yeah.
part of having a global online
Yes.
business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did when I started out, I tried to, please everybody, and it came from my old corporate life, the people pleaser, and quoting everyone's individual currencies, and using Wise that wasn't too bad because you can have different currency wallets and things,
Yeah.
but it was just a nightmare for reconciliation, for forecasting.
Mm.
I'm pleased I got it all under control before I applied for my mortgage because the bank would have wouldn't have been able to work anything out. Um, yeah, and there's still a little bit of, it's still, I use Xero for the reconciling, but the bookkeeper still has to do a little bit of manual work because of all the different ways
Yeah.
that money comes into my business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't you love Xero? Because you can pull your Wise transactions in, you can
Yeah.
pull your local bank
Yeah.
transactions, you can pull your Stripe, your pay,
Yeah. It's all
everything
there.
comes into Xero, and it just makes it
Exactly.
so easy. So yeah, love
Exactly.
Xero.
Yeah. The only part that makes it manual is just figuring out which ones are GST and which ones aren't. So that's the part that
Yeah.
the bookkeeper does for me manually. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. It's easy, I would say.
Yeah.
Once you know
And
what you're doing, online business
yeah.
payments are easy now.
Yeah, but also having a facility like Wise. Like we thought we were
Oh,
pretty cool when we got Stripe, and that
yeah,
just
or
meant that
PayPal.
I could do away with the Westpac merchant and all of the manual complexities that came with that with my business. And
Yeah,
now I could do Stripe. I'm like, oh my gosh, how good is
yeah,
this? And
yeah, yeah.
then facilities like Wise come online, and it allows you to then do global banking. And you're like, now I don't need to traipse down to the bank and pay $25 and wait 2 weeks for that transfer
Yeah.
to go somewhere. You're like,
Yeah, yeah, and I even with Wise have a card, so
yep,
when I travel, I can just like withdraw cash out of
yes,
that card or use it to pay for in US dollars for things, and
yeah,
yeah, so it's just that one step forward for international. For
yeah.
sure.
So I truly believe that, operating a global business in today's environment is just so much easier because of the technology that's been developed, which I also believe has been sped up because of COVID. When I look back
Absolutely.
at
Hmm.
what we were doing pre-COVID, and like I operated a cloud-based business pre-COVID, which meant
Mm.
the transition into COVID was easy. We just locked the doors, went home, carried on.
Yeah,
But that whole time over COVID, the amount of technology upgrades and improvements and
yeah,
rollouts and new tools that came on stream because of those 3 years,
absolutely.
I truly believe that it's like almost leapfrogged us 10 years.
Yes, yeah, I agree, and just the acceptance of everything like that as well.
Mm,
More people than inside my business learned how to use Zoom. Um, and I remember when Zoom put their prices up just a year or so ago, and they served people during that pandemic. So I applauded them. I was like, you go
yeah,
and put your prices up. Like you got us through that pandemic
yeah,
alone, like only
alone,
Zoom.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
a bit of Microsoft Teams as well, but yeah, so. Yeah, definitely. It's cool. It's been really cool. I do still find, and I guess this is going back to one of the challenges in my business has been, or
Mhm.
just with even just deciding to have this kind of lifestyle, is there are still boxes that people have to fit into in society, uh, i.e. buying a mortgage, getting a mortgage, I'm not a traditional business. There's been some challenges on that front. Yeah, so still having to tick society's boxes sometimes is painful for me because at the start, obviously, there was a fear of looking different and being different and things. But now I'm like, this is what I'm doing. Like, look out,
Yeah.
world. Yeah, even 6 months ago, I was pet sitting full time again, just tripping about and between my overseas adventures. And
Mhm.
the New Zealand census came out. And I didn't tick any of those boxes for, where do you live, what do you, and it's fine with me. I'm okay about not fitting into boxes, but I'm very passionate about the underdog and things. So I'm like, what about all those people living in their cars? What box have they ticked for the census? Yeah, so
Mm.
that's just going into, getting outside the box. It's probably one of the fears and challenges that people have along the way as well. And it's okay to do it. And just so long as you feel supported, then
Yeah.
then you can. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. Is yeah, when you do something that is outside the box,
Mm.
but you want to do something like buy a home. It's like, well, how do you fit into that box? Well, how do you get them to understand how they need to come and understand what you do as opposed to you fitting in their box?
Yeah. Like the bank just came back to me with the loan request the other day and asked me to close my business bank account, my business credit card, as one of the conditions of the loan. And the
Right.
credit card is $1,300, so it's not a lot of money, and the
Yeah.
loan's a lot more. And my business actually can't run without a credit card because of all the
Yeah.
subscriptions and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I pushed back on that and won in the end. But just things like that I guess are some of the challenges that you experience along the way. Also
Yeah.
buying a house, a lot of people think I'm buying a house to settle down.
Yeah.
I'm buying a house to put my things in so I can go away again. Like,
Love
you know,
that.
yeah. So not being afraid to get outside of what looks normal and what is considered normal, or society norms and
Yeah.
expectations, I guess.
So good. So what are your plans for your business going forward? What does your business look like in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I think just to help more and more people, especially with um, launching, I think is a big thing right now. Well, and will always be,
Yeah.
people having to relaunch and things. So just still doing the same basis as what I do now, consulting done for you, but yeah, a bit more focus on A, freeing up people's time, and B, helping with the education of that. So probably look to bring on board a couple more contractors to help me out as well. I never plan to have a big, team of people, or I don't, it wouldn't make sense to have, full-time employees in my business, and I don't need to. That's the other pleasure of having this kind of online business now. Yeah, so and just being able to still travel the world like I do summer to summer. I would love to do some more in-person speaking, so bringing that on board globally as well. Um, yeah, I attended the Kajabi conference last year. I had an absolute ball. Would love to just keep going back to that and more of the conferences as well. Now
Yeah.
that we're out the other side of COVID, and we're able to get out in the world again. Yeah, just go a bit
Yeah.
more global than what I was restricted to, and I guess ultimately make it on that rocket ship to the moon eventually.
Yes.
That vision board,
Mm.
that wherever that is now.
Yeah. Nice. Love that. All right. Three recommendations that you would share with other service-based businesses who want to grow, who have got plans to grow in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I think my top one has always been having the right support in your business, and I don't mean the bookkeeper and things. Definitely, that's part of it. But I've had a business coach for 5 years now, so whether it's a business coach, a mentor, an accountability buddy, something like that, something to
Mhm.
keep you on track, accountable, and heading towards whatever that North Star is for you. So yeah. That would be my biggest one. It definitely helps, keep the blinkers on and not
Yeah.
chase those shiny objects.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the first one. I guess I'm, like I say, all about automation, systemization, delegation. So that would be kind of the next step for me. So getting things in place, especially once you're full time in your business, to then free up your time again. I remember when I went for it full time in my business, it was very easy for me to sit at my desk 7 days a week
Mm.
and work all the hours. I have the pleasure of not having children, and so I could do that, but that became really detrimental. And I remember in the second lockdown. Discovering that I had no hobbies, because I just worked all the time. And when the
Yeah.
lockdown came, I was like, life's no different for me right now, apart from I can't go to the coffee shop or, meet friends for lunch or, the social activities. But other than that, I walk around the block. So having things in place and prioritizing your life outside of business as well. Yeah. So
Yeah.
having the
Love that.
delegation, the systems in place, because not just because it's cool to do, or you should invest
Yeah.
like that, but make sure you know the because, the why of why you're doing that. Ultimately,
Yeah.
why you went to your own online business. Like, why did you start your business? Yeah,
Yeah. And you started it mostly because you wanted a bit of freedom in what you were doing. So working
exactly.
the long hours and being stuck at your computer, how is that?
Yeah. And I
manifesting
think,
that life.
yeah, and ultimately, the pandemic was the real burst of my business. That's what sent it into being able to go full time. However, also because I couldn't go anywhere, travel
Yeah.
wise, I did lock down a little bit more than what I needed to, or yeah, was necessary. So I think too, when you come from corporate world into your own online business, you just bring a lot of that baggage with you too, like what the people pleasing. I was often an EA, an executive assistant, and you said yes to everything and took on everything and did everything. So just learning the boundaries and things in your business. And how you want your business to be. But I think that's part of the journey. I think when
Yeah.
you start
Yeah.
out, you just do what you have to, and you learn along the way.
Yeah. And I think you hustle in the beginning, and then you come to a point where it's like, all right, now what's different? What do I need to do different? Because I didn't get here to be hustling continuously. So
Yeah.
there is a point where you sit back and go, okay, so now things need to change. All the excitement and the honeymoon of starting your own business, well, now
Yeah.
that's gone.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
I need to get serious about like what my why was in the first place. Like I started this
Yeah.
because why? Yeah.
Yeah, just going back and revisiting that often. Obviously, the new year is always a good time for that. But yeah, just understanding all that, and that you get to make your own decisions and choices as well. Like it's your
Yeah.
business, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Love
that's the
that.
cool part.
Builds right into my philosophy of build your business your way. Like we don't have to
Yeah,
follow
nice.
anyone else's plan. We don't have to do anything the way that anyone says that we should. Just because it
Yeah.
works for them doesn't mean it works for us. We can take a
Mm,
look at what works for them and go, actually, I like that bit and I like that bit. All right, how can I bring that into the way I
mm,
want to run my business? And
mhm.
yeah, there isn't a right way and a wrong way. There's just the way that you want to do it in order to live the life that you want to live. And if that life looks like working 50 hours a week, then you do you. But if
Yeah,
that life looks like working 20 hours a week, then you do you, you know?
yeah, yeah. As long as it's
Yeah.
what you've set out to do.
That's
Exactly.
right. Yeah. All right, one more fun question before we wrap it up. Where are
Yeah.
you traveling to next?
Oh, that's such a big question. Um, I think because it's not planned yet, it's not booked yet. So the house is the most biggest priority right now, and after that, then we're planning. Um, I think I'm heading up to Europe for winter. Um, this is the first time I've said this out loud. So, yeah, I have a friend getting married in the UK. I lived in the UK for 11 years, and I have a friend still over there from New Zealand who's
Yeah.
getting married. So, hoping to head over there. And then I think I'm going to base myself maybe in Spain. I miss Spain a lot from when I lived over
Oh,
there. So,
Spain is
um,
beautiful.
yeah, I just have to do a bit more research because Spain in summer is hot. So,
Yeah.
maybe too hot for me. So, yeah, I will just that research will come next. But I'm very much a couple of months out person, like book everything a couple of months out. So yeah, one
Nice.
way ticket up there will be
Yeah.
pending when the Kajabi conference is as to when I come back again.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So those
Nice.
plans, but I try to get into this routine of going Southeast Asia, Central America, and I just alternated, and then
Right.
COVID interrupted that.
Yeah.
But I got back to Central America last winter for 5 months. So yeah,
Oh. So where did you base yourself in Central America?
Nicaragua.
Oh, how good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was great. It was amazing. Highly recommended to anyone that's considering that.
Yeah, yeah. One of the previous guests that I had on the podcast very early on in this journey, she American, but she lives in Spain with her and her husband and her kids.
Yeah.
She was ex service person, army, I
Oh,
think,
yes.
New Zealand
Yeah.
army, maybe, yeah. Um, and so now living now in Spain doing online business. So I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
cool as
It's
that
very
is.
like I said earlier, I think a lot of New Zealand online businesses that, were about before COVID potentially just weren't known, and they're doing their own
Yeah.
thing and they're just flying under the radar. And it's just,
Mm.
now we know what everyone's up to and what everyone's doing. But it's so normalized to me now because when
Yeah.
I travel, I meet all those people doing those things as well, digital
Yeah.
nomads as they're called. Yeah, so it becomes easy for me because I'm an easy traveler, and finding the places to live for those amount of times and things is just,
Yeah.
I have all those networks now. So Yeah. So it's sometimes really hard to explain to other people that just have no concept of it, but it's actually a really common thing. And there's billions of people, well, maybe not billions, but thousands and hundreds of thousands of people around the world doing it. Yeah.
Doing it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Kate. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, sharing your story, opening up about your business.
Thank
Like,
you.
I've really enjoyed it. Like, I could probably go down the whole travel journey next with you, but
Yeah, right. So that's edition 2, episode 2.
yeah, 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 yeah. So really, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to put all of the links for people to find you in
Yep,
the show notes so they can reach out to you on social media or just get in
yep,
touch through all of those links.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you so
reach
much for
out,
having
talk to
me.
you. Yeah, no worries at all.
It's been
All
great.
right. Good luck with the mortgage and
Thank you.
all the planning for that next travel. That sounds great.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.